Call the Carlisle Village Council meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mr. Bicknell?
Here.
Mr. Licklider?
Here.
Mr. McIntosh?
Here.
Mr. McEldowney?
Here.
Ms. Tankersley? Here. Mayor Winkler?
Here. Before you are the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 26th. Do we need a motion to suspend the reading of the minutes? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Tankersley,
Second. Mr. Jewett. Take your pick.
pick one. Roll call.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Mr. Licklider?
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. McEldowney?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. Before you are the minutes of the regular meeting, is there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Bicknell, roll call.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. McEldowney?
Yes.
Mr. Licklider?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. Regular minutes of September 26 have been adopted. Next on our agenda is our public forum, and the first order of business under public forum is Ohio Craft Cultivators, here to talk to us about the processing of medical marijuana. So, at this time,
Good evening, Council.
good evening.
My name is Anthony DiLorenzo on behalf of Ohio Craft Cultivators. Thank you for taking the time. With me is also Attorney Chris Kennard and Debbie Gordon. As you know, I presented to you earlier at last that we put the moratorium on cultivation a few months back.
Would you see if maybe you can put the mic closer to you, maybe?
Is that better?
Yeah.
We spoke a few months ago about lifting the moratorium for the purpose of cultivation, and I'm here to ask you to consider the same for processing marijuana. I spoke with Julie earlier, and she suggested that I come out and address you and answer any questions you might have. So that's what I'm here to do. I've got a PowerPoint, which I believe you all have a copy of, and I'm here to address any questions or concerns that you might have.
If I may, before you present, I know you have someone there on, just so council's aware on who's watching
I
from.
apologize, that's Ted Grillo. He's actually the specialist, so he would be able to answer any technical questions you have about processing. He's unable to be with us, he's on vacation in North Carolina.
Okay. Council have any questions of Mr. DiLorenzo?
First of all, I'd like to start off to, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We've talked about the size of your building and type of building and so forth for the cultivation. Can you tell us a little bit, is this going to be an extension to what you have, or what size of building we're looking at?
We're looking at a 3,000 to 5,000 square foot building, so he's significantly smaller than the cultivation facility.
Yeah.
Would this be two separate buildings?
It doesn't have to be, it'd probably be dictated by the law, so it'd be up to the state. It'd be more efficient to have them connected in some manner, but it'd be on the same property.
Okay. With the same security, same
Yes,
everything that the building number one would have
correct,
if these licenses even come to fruition.
exactly.
Do you have any idea about the licensing process that you're currently involved in? Do you have?
I don't have any insight to it other than what you could read in the newspaper or on the internet. I'm told November is the first, the cultivation licenses will be released, but I'm not certain of that.
Okay. They didn't give a specific date in November, first week, second week?
They have said the first or second week
November, but that date has already been extended, and it's possible again. I mean, there are a large number of licenses that they have to consider and review.
And the application has a significant amount of data in it.
If I could ask that you would just state your name for the record,
Chris Conard, I'm legal counsel for Ohio
Okay.
Craft Cultivators.
just make sure we get it recorded.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the sake of the audience, could you, and it has nothing to do with the processing lab yet, but could you kind of go over what you've done so far as the licensing and, you know, what you've gone through with the state to get to where you are now?
Sure. So my understanding are there are 4 licenses available in the state. Cultivation, processing, there's a lab license, which I believe has been awarded or applied for by universities, and then there's dispensary licenses. The cultivation license is the one we first applied for. It was a significant effort. We had 4 attorneys working on it, several consultants, experts in the industry, from not only from the marijuana industry, but also from construction, design, equipment. Ohio did a very good job as far as putting a comprehensive application out there. So it took a lot of work and effort, and it was expensive.
Okay. One point that I'd like to raise too, I'm sure that most of you out there have read an awful lot about what's going on, but the actual growing space of a cultivator and a license, it's a very small amount of area, right? Like half of an acre?
The square footage, they call it a canopy. So
Yeah.
our building that we designed and submitted with our application is 45,000 square feet, of which 25,000 square feet is a growing area.
Okay.
And the rest of it is related to the process of cultivation, from storage to there's rooms to trim the plants and whatnot.
And could you talk a little bit about how the security of that particular installation will be?
So we hired a security expert and a firm to secure the building. It would be no different than a bank or any a jewelry store, any industry that had valuable products inside. I mean, it's to our benefit as well to have that product protected. So with the application, we have to submit a security plan, and that's part of the state of Ohio is grading these applications, and that's one of the areas that they will grade. So when they award licenses, it'll be on a point system, and you get a certain amount of points for your security system.
Okay. The reason I ask that is that I'm sure that the first impression I think a lot of people have is that, you know, that there will be people be able to walk down the sidewalk and walk up to your installation and get in there and just take all the stuff that they want. That was the first impression my wife had. You know, when I told her what was going on, she goes, well, there's going to be people down there lined up trying to dig this stuff out of there. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands the security that's going to be around this installation. That's not going to allow that, not even close.
No, I was thinking about this the other day. I think it'll be safer than a bank from a perspective that a bank has to let people in to the facility. We do not, you know, the public does not come into the facility whatsoever. They don't come on the property whatsoever. So.
Okay.
If I could address that a little bit. Chris Conard again. The security provisions are very extensive for both the cultivation and the processing. For example, there has to be an adequate security alarm system. It has to be commercial grade equipment. There's going to be fencing and gates around the facility that would meet with the aesthetics that the community would expect. There is video surveillance and recording equipment. There is limited access based upon your status as an employee, so that not everyone has access to the full facility. It's on as needed basis. There's an expectation that there will be motion detectors as well, the requirement of video cameras to capture the entire facility, maintaining logs for designated period of times, as long as weekly inventory accounting that's done that has to be provided to the state. There's in addition to the video surveillance recording, there's a requirement on the number of screens and the screen sizes. There's a requirement that the video be date and time stamped. Cameras have to be stored outdoors and indoors, including low-light interior areas with cameras that can detect images in that type of lighting. I already mentioned the 24-hour feed. There will be silent alarms. There's automatic voice dialing systems for electric message. It is a very, very secure facility, and the expectation is that that level of security will not only be there for the cultivation facility, but for the processing facility. And obviously, if this were on one site, there would be economies of scale that would inure to the community, and there would be more economic development that would flow from that as well.
If I understood correctly, the last time also part of the security was each plant has a GPS attached to it, and that plant is monitored throughout its growing period.
There's software that tracks from seed to sale on
Yeah, and
yes.
that's security, I guess, that's information you're gathering based on how the plant is doing, as well as security to keep someone from stealing part of
Correct.
that plant and taking it out of the facility.
And that would be intact through the processing
Correct.
process.
Yes.
What about additional jobs? I mean, if you can talk, even if you think your preliminary numbers from the first time we talked have increased, decreased, stayed the same, and then new jobs that this would be utilizing.
So you're asking me to give an educated guess.
Mhm.
So all indications are that there's going to be a lot of demand. So the preliminary numbers that I gave you initially are probably low. The state has made, I'm not sure if it's in the law, but they've made provisions to increase the size of the cultivation facilities based on demand. So with that increase in size will obviously be an increase in jobs. And the processing facility are additional. So we're talking about processing, that's additional employees. And we're estimating about the same number of employees for that, upwards of 20 employees.
Can you describe for the people that are here this evening the type of building? You had mentioned canopy in your, that the state is calling it. Can you describe what the building would look like from the outside?
Certainly. So with our previous discussions on about cultivation, Carlisle was specific that they wanted a building that was industrial looking, because it's an industrial park. So it'll be a steel-sided industrial looking building.
What about the roof? Will it be a clear roof?
No, it won't be clear.
So no one driving by will be able to see any lights, or
It will be.
they wouldn't know it anything from a manufacturing facility next door?
No windows will be in the building, from what I understand.
I'm not certain of that. There will be no windows in the building, but it will look like a normal industrial building.
Nothing in the cultivation area, probably.
All the cultivation, in fact, the cultivation area, they're very, and this is just something I've learned, is they're very specific about light getting in there. So when the lights are on and the growing process is happening, that's what's going on. But once that stops, they don't want any light getting into that room. Something to do with the way the plants grow.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Can you walk us through what processing actually means?
Sure. So some of my team members put this together for us. So CO2 extraction is the most safe way of extracting oil, basically, from the plants. There's, sort of one of the most dangerous aspects of extracting is butane, which we are not using. So CO2, like I said, is the safest. If you look at the third page, it basically describes how the process works. So they'll take the inside cultivation, once the plants are grown, they'll take all the leaves off, and that will be transported to the processing area where they'll extract oils. It's a two-step process. So after the CO2 extraction happens, there's also and the extraction is similar to extracting vanilla or fruit extract or several other industries, okay? Once the initial extraction is done, then they have a short path distillation, which happens. Once that's completed, the processing facility has several different products that they can make. So there's pens that they make, which have measured amounts of dosage for potential users. There are edibles, there are teas that are made, there are tinctures that are made. So there's all sorts of different products that end up coming out of the processing facility. And if you want me to get more specific, that's what Ted is here for, so he can answer more specific questions about the processing of the product.
So once it's processed in your facility, is it ready to go to the end user? Ready to be dispensed from there? There's not another step before?
No, it would go to then a dispensary, so a processing facility cannot sell to the end user. It would go to a dispensary, and the dispensary would sell it. But yes, it would be ready to be consumed.
Can you talk a little bit about the moneyless system that you were talking about earlier?
I just started reading about that today, and I don't know how much traction that's gotten. One of the concerns about the industry is the amount of cash that's involved. Not so much in cultivation and processing end of it as the dispensary end of it, because it's federally, technically illegal. Federal banks will not take cash, so it's either state chartered banks or credit unions that will take the cash. But there's been some talk about having what they call a closed loop system in the state of Ohio, which will allow, rather than people walking in the door to a dispensary with cash, they would have like a debit card, and then the dispensary would also, so if somebody came in and purchased something, that money would then be credited to the dispensary. If the dispensary needed some money to pay bills or whatnot, that this closed loop system would then cut a check on their behalf. So that basically what the legislation is talking about or trying to achieve is taking the large amounts of cash out of the equation. But I don't know how much traction that's gotten.
Okay. I think another point that I'd like to make too, for everyone here, is that, as y'all know, we have given permission for the Ohio Crafters to cultivate, or to buy the land to cultivate on, if in fact they receive the license. That's a key point. Is there 109, is that correct, 109 applications for?
I want to say it was, so there were two types of cultivation licenses, a small one and a big one. I want to say there was 105 or 6 larger applications and a total of 185 or 6 total applications.
So point here is that 105 of 6 applications are for 12 licenses that the Ohio State is going to grant. So right now, we don't even know if the license is going to be granted to the company that we're talking to. The second point is that if we talk about and if we approve the processing side of the business, we have no intention of going to distribution, which means that the product that is processed or cultivated and processed here will then leave Carlisle, and we will not be in the distribution process at all. So I want to kind of make that point. I know that we've kind of talked about it, and I don't, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but it's something we've talked about and something we are not at all interested in.
I was just in a meeting yesterday morning, and it was actually put on by the Centerville Police Department. One of their detectives was there, and he talked about multiple topics from opioids and heroin and fentanyl and carfentanil and everything that's on the streets today. And then they kind of touched on the medical marijuana issue. And from my understanding of this presentation that I was in yesterday, the plants that are used in the growing facility are a different plant than what you see growing out in the wild.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it is. So there's 2 active ingredients that are used, CBD and THC. and it depends on the particular intent of the medicine as far as which one is used. So my understanding, and again, I'm not an expert on this, is a CBD is more for seizures, where the THC is more for pain, like cancer patients and things like that. Again, Ted would be able to speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, the gentleman that put on this presentation spoke about 3 different types of plants.
Right.
And he had pictures of them, and he specifically pointed out the one particular plant. And I believe the started with an I, but I can't recall the name of the plant. But he said that was typically the type of plant that was used versus something that you see growing in the wild.
I think sativa
So-
is one of them, but I'm not certain. I have that
Yeah.
on my email.
So generally, the plants that grow in the wild are varieties. Those plants generally have a low content of THC or CBD, which THC is the psychoactive cannabis. It also helps gain pain. CBD, like Anthony said, helps with seizures, also alleviates pain and inflammation. Generally, the plants that are grown in Colorado don't have large amounts of either of those active ingredients, so they have no medicinal benefit. The only benefit they have is for that production of fiber, other materials like cloth or paper, and so forth. There are 3 different types of cannabis. They're all under the family of cannabis, but there's sativa, indica, ruderalis, and all 3 have their application within the medical market or for certain applications.
Thank you. It's a little hard to hear, but
Yeah.
could make out most of it.
And we don't expect a decision this evening, so if you have technical questions that you need to answer at a later date, we're happy to
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate you taking the
Thank
time
you.
to come.
We imagine there will be some questions from the audience.
The public forum is still open if anyone else would like to address council this evening. As we have a large audience, I'm not sure how many folks are here to speak, but I'd like to enact our 5-minute rule this evening. If you could kind of get your comments in within 5 minutes. And so at this time, if anyone would like to speak, you may come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don Pilkington, 100 Commercial Way, Carlisle, South George. I had a question for the gentleman. You guys talked about security at the plant and all that. I had a question as far as once it reaches the loading dock, and who's picking it up? Uber? UPS?
I'll let him answer
How
that
is it
question.
delivered?
Ted, did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question. So, within the regulation, Ohio has certain protocols and requirements to follow, in reference to transporting. Those start with
You're there, Ted.
Oh, poor Ted, sorry. I was trying to turn you up, okay. Start again.
So, the state requires us to follow certain security protocols during the transport. Those would require GPS in the vehicle, which is transporting the material to have the GPS on it to generate random avenues so that no one route is ever traveled more than once. There would be multiple employees in the vehicle for the transport, and that transport would occur in an enclosed garage bay, secure from the exterior, and then also surrounded by fencing, which the entire facility would be encompassed by.
Answer my question.
Okay, and you know, that's a fair question, and we asked that very same question on our initial visit, and what was discussed at that time is the product would be loaded inside of a closed facility. It would be in an unmarked vehicle. it would be in more like a van, not necessarily a semi-truck or something of that nature. And I guess when you think about it in a way, how are all the drugs transported to all the drugstores every day that get there? And, but, you know, we had that very same concern on our initial talk with this company.
And I think one more thing they added, sorry, was that the pickup times will be also, you mentioned the routes being random, their pickup time is not going to be the same consistently. Is that correct, Ted?
Yes.
Okay.
I think another point too is that a lot of these, the Ohio State has got a huge amount of regulation around this industry and around even the transportation of it, so they're into it pretty heavily about, you basically have to do what they're being told, you know, so.
Well, just a concern I had listening to you talk about. But I had another question concerning my business. And I had heard that there was, in a work session last week, there was a discussion about storage facilities.
To be quite honest with you, I forgot that work session and I wasn't here, but maybe someone who was here could speak on that
I just
topic.
was wondering what it entailed and how it naturally affects my business in a big way.
It is true. We have a citizen that's come to us and asked us to reconsider our current laws on storage facilities, and so we didn't quite get that discussion complete because there was 3 of us that weren't in the discussion. So we probably schedule another one to do a work session and go back over that. You know.
And is the city's position changed on that, or is it open?
Can't say at this time.
Okay. Is there some way I could be informed as to when, or am I privy to that, or
Oh yeah,
to that discussion?
Work sessions are open to you, and we'll make sure you're aware.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Don.
Thank you.
If I get out on the record, whenever there is a council work session, the agendas are posted on our website under the agenda session.
Well, I watch the videos, but I understand the work sessions aren't videoed.
They are not, because they are not a meeting of record. There is no motions or law that's enacted in a work session.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
But we'll make sure you get the agenda when they do set one.
Thank you.
Public forum is still open if anyone else would like to address council.
Jeff Foster, 5514 Glen Court, Carlisle. And some of my comments are probably outside the scope of what we're considering here, but I am deeply concerned about medical marijuana generally, us going down that path, considering the problems that are taking place in other states, Colorado, for example, that have, you know, it starts out as medical marijuana, and then next thing you know, it's gone to recreational marijuana. It's huge challenges for law enforcement, and just problems generally that I don't really think we're prepared to deal with. I mean, we've had so many questions asked tonight that are just basic questions that you would think would have already been nailed down and answered. It seems to me the people who are with the company don't even have all the answers as far as what they're going to be doing. I recall that during Prohibition, there was medical whiskey. And you could go to a doctor and get a prescription for a bottle of bourbon and go to the drugstore and buy it and have a prescription label on there, you know. And in states that have medical marijuana, it's very, very simple to get a prescription for that. I also wonder why it is that Miamisburg and Huber Heights and Butler Township and Oakwood and various other locales have recently, you know, reinstated their bans on marijuana, medical marijuana. I know Miamisburg just, I think, October 3rd, just recently reinstated their ban. So what's the difference between us and Yellow Springs and Miamisburg? If it's a bad idea in Miamisburg, why is it a good idea in Carlisle? wondering, you know, if we just got dollar signs in our eyes and that's blinding us to some bigger issues that we need to be considering. So, just concerned.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your,
Thank you.
thank you for your comments. Public forum is still open if anyone else would like to address council.
I'm Larry Lambus at 800 Central Avenue. And I have two people that I'm working with right now over this thing called legalization of marijuana, whether it's for medicinal purposes and that there. She is a forensic professor at Virginia Commonwealth. And so she works with law officers, she works with cities, she works with all of these things. She's been doing it now for several years. And she had told me that there's a lot that's out there that when you go redo your research, it's going to say this, this, and this, and this. She says from the scientific side and the side of looking at the chemicals and the things that take place. And so she's going to send me some of that information, more of that information. I got some today that I couldn't download and that kind of thing there. But I did talk to my medical doctor, Dr. Ronald Klein, Dr. Ronald Klein, and I asked him. He was looking me over to see how good I am or whatever. And I began to ask him. I said, "You know what's going on in Carlisle?" He said, "Yeah, I heard that." And I asked him the question. I said, "So are there medicinal purposes? I mean, does it treat things?" And he said, "There's no study out there that says that it is a medicinal agent, that it doesn't cure anything, all it does is mask." And he said, "You've already have those out there. You always got lots of things that do that already. And so to have medical marijuana," he said, "doesn't make sense." They've had medical marijuana for how many years now in a pill? Anybody know?
I don't know.
30 years. So it's been out there a long time already. And it didn't do the things that they thought it would do. So we're looking at a $2.4 million, actually a $4 million industry. It looks like somebody wins and somebody loses. And so I'm against this, and I think I'm going to look at a referendum on your all's vote. And so we'll just get some people together, we'll start doing that. I'll look and see what that takes place, what needs to be done with that, and how to do that. And I think we can do that as a community. And this lady from Virginia Commonwealth said you can do that. Other communities have done that when they thought maybe some things were good for the community that really isn't. So I just want you all to know that I'm looking at some stuff from somebody who's well into it and does a lot of forensic stuff and teaches it. And when I told her that what was going on, she goes, "That's a bad deal." So I'm against it. So I just want y'all to know that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your comment. I'd just like to share one quick story that a fellow shared with me about a month ago. He was actually the street superintendent for the city of Kettering, and I was working in that community and had to have those folks come out on the job site. And we got to talking, and turned out that this young man actually went to school here in Carlisle at one point in his life. He ended up graduating from high school in Germantown. And he told me he had a 14-year-old son who was autistic and suffered from multiple seizures a day. And he said, my son's physician kept recommending medical marijuana. And he said, because of my religious beliefs, I would not allow it. And he said, finally, after watching my son go through multiple seizures a day, he said, I decided to try it. And he said, so we put my son on it, and he said he rarely has a seizure now in a month. So, you know, I know we have a lot of people against it, and I understand that. There's also folks on the other side, which, in a situation of that, how do you argue with that? But I certainly appreciate your comments and your concern.
That was a conversation that I had with my
Yeah.
medical doctor, I said, what
Yeah.
about that specific thing that you just mentioned?
Mhm.
For those that have seizures, because I've read that and looked at it. And he said this, yes, it does affect them. He said, but there's other things out there that even do better than that.
Okay.
So I don't know whether this guy has looked at that. And, you know, he said there are other things out there that are just as efficient.
Okay. Well, thank you for your information. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Public forum is still open, if anyone else would like to address council. Please come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
My name is Don Trusty, and I live at 100 Burn Place. Good to meet you folks. I was here yesterday.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
We have, let me say before I get into what I want to say is we have lived in Carlisle for going on 13, maybe 14 years. My brother-in-law and I was raised in school here up to about the 9th grade. And wound up in Miamisburg. And so the school district at that time was #1 in the state. I'm 72, so I'm probably the oldest guy here. So this is probably before any of you guys were born. And I have watched Carlisle. Never dreamed I'd ever move back to Carlisle. And my brother-in-law and I started flipping houses 12, 13 years ago. And we came to Carlisle. And we got involved in flipping houses here, and we flipped everything they had. My realtor said, Don, there's no more houses in Carlisle. And then the bottom fell out 10 years ago, so you know the story on that. And so we were just doing it didn't care about making a lot of money, just have something, and I always liked the community. And at least a third, maybe even more, of our church, and I don't want to drag religion into this, goes to Carlisle School, lives here, works here, up to 5 generations. We just buried a little sister. She was up in her 90s, and that made it was 5 generations in our church, and they are the cleanest cut kids in the world. They're just like my own. I mean, they got the greatest work ethics in the world. Straight, they don't even smoke a cigarette. Never hear a dirty word come out of their mouth. And hard working, raising their babies now, they're coming up in the school district. And what I was wanting to say is this. I got a number of things I want to say. One is, when I lived in Montgomery County, we had a board of people in West Carrollton, and I went to a couple meetings on a couple things. And I'm not used to doing this. I'm not a troublemaker, nothing like that. But they passed some issues that we had no right to vote on. But then we have to take up all the heat from it. Now, here's what I'm trying to tell you. They passed the legislation and we bear the burden. They passed the legislation and it affects our children. And I lived in a $160,000 house at that time, 155, 65. And within some 3-year period, it went down to, I got $107,000 out of it. And you couldn't tell. And here's what I'm looking at. I asked a young man, I don't know which one he might be here, on the telephone today. I just heard it on the news, and I said, hey, somebody's got to say something about this. And I said, would you want to move in next door to a marijuana growing deal? He said, no, I wouldn't. I'll ask you, would you want to move in next door to it? I don't want to, no, sir. I wouldn't lie to you for $1 million. And I've known this community before you all was ever brought into the earth. And it's always been one that people cherish. I run into people like this gentleman was talking about, and all over, way up in Dayton, different places, nurses and doctors. Next thing you know, well, I was raised in Carlisle, man, that's great, I love that. I swam in the old creek and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to see anything hinder that. this is me. I don't want to see anything raise up that 5, 6, 7 years from now, we'll look in the mirror and say, that's the dumbest thing I ever promoted. And I'm not here to pick on these people, but I am here to say this. When you need a building without windows, isolated and nobody knows it, you know that where they're wanting to put it. You know, the building that was a morgue, I imagine they called it, and they had this problem with it a few weeks ago. I never even knew the morgue was there. Okay, I never knew that existed. But if we have to have a building isolated and hopefully nobody knows what we're doing in, and you're going to have a special truck to sneak in and pack the junk out, doesn't that tell you something wrong with the whole issue? The whole issue. And I'm not being mean, I'm just telling you from my depths of my heart. And a couple of things I do want to say is this. I've been completely around this world. I saw what pot does before it ever reached America the way it is. I went into Vietnam, and one of my brothers back here can say the same thing. I walked in with your boy, and your boy, and your boy at 20 years old. And after 14 months of war, I carried some of them out, those that lived, but were blown away from pot to all the drugs that you mentioned. And I can take you tonight 1 block away from my house and show you a young man, handsome, good-looking boy. 21, 22, 23. It always starts with smoking that reefer, smoking this, no matter how you get it. No matter how you get it. And he was that far away from dying a few weeks ago. They literally was going to go in and operate on his brain and heart, trying to make him live. And I thought he'd end up a vegetable, and by the grace of God, he's doing better. I don't want to see somebody say, "Do you hear about that? Marijuana growing, da-da-da, all this on Yogan Corral." And expect these great contractors that's building these new homes around here. I mean, I'm looking at buying a new home around here, another one. But I don't want to have that baggage going with me. I mean, this is me, I'm telling you from my heart. I don't want that. The second thing is this, and I want you to bear this in mind. If we have to change legislation for this, it's not a city village. Why can't we vote on this thing? I have to bear the burden of it. These people, you do. It may be your grandson. And one way or the other, I like what this gentleman said. Note what he said. It's going to be a great demand for it. Great. Am I telling you right? A great demand. That means you're going to be able to walk into a doctor's office and say, "My tooth's killing me. You want a bag of pot?" And away you're going. We see this all the time on television and everywhere else, and it's no different here. I don't want Corral to be known in the future as that. And then I'm going to hush by saying this. I love it here. I moved out of that area up in that Dayton Mall area. Simply when I got down here, flipped the number of houses, I said, "I'm going to hunt me a nice home." So I did. We tore all the pieces of it. We put it back there. It was turnkey. And it's probably a $170,000 piece of property, real easy. But, and let me ask you this. Same situation in West Carroll with a number of different issues there that just blew the whole plat to zero. If my house in 5 years from now is only worth $100,000, can I come back to you boys and say you owe me $60,000 because of your decision? So, and the reason I'm saying this is so that you will realize the impact sometimes some of these things have on a community. And I don't want to see, I can tell you stories over and over and over and over and over about it started with marijuana. Next thing you know, they're snorting cocaine. I worked with guys the same way. Started with marijuana. Next thing you know, they're out on, when they get their paycheck, and half of it's going for cocaine, and they're snorting it up their nose, and they're going from that. Then next thing you know, they're preaching their funeral. I don't want this. I don't want Carlisle that have a reputation that says it all began here. And I know I might get some flack from this, but that happens. And this is the second, never, 13 years I've never stood in here, never griped about a thing. I mean, if my water bill goes to $150 a month, I don't care. I want to stay right here because I love this place. And so many of the people that I'm so close to love and cherish this place. I don't want to throw a monkey wrench in the system and cause it to become either the talk of the state or the country. Or I have to look, I mean, I deal with a lot of young people. I don't want to be burying them. I don't want to hear testimonies and things that, well, he went to a doctor and he got him, said he was this and that, and then you know how it is with this opioid deal. I know folks on opioid, those pain pills, and he'd hop from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor with the same line and get a prescription so they can stay high all day long. Now hear me. This ain't any nickel's worth of difference in that and this. And I'm not here to bust your bubble, but I'm just here to tell you to make a right decision. You want it that bad, build you a house next to it. And I'm talking to the folks that has to make these decisions, or let us vote on this thing, somehow work some legislation out that we can go to the polls in November or up in January or whenever, that the public can vote on these. We're not stupid. I mean, we're not stupid or we wouldn't be here. I had no idea I'd be here. I was power washing my sidewalks in my driveway, and I flipped the news on, and they said, and we'll tell you where it's going to be, the growing thing. They said, Carlisle. I said, what? And I couldn't help it. I'm here, and that's what brought me here. I'd be home watching Judge Judy or something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public forum is still open if anyone else would like to address council. Seeing none, we'll close the public forum. We'll move on to council reports. Mr. Bicknell, would you like to start off this evening?
I just want to thank the Ohio Cultivators for coming in and speaking with us and giving us some more information. Excuse me, some more information regarding the processing, as well as where you guys stood with the potential of the license and when it may or may not come. Also like to thank everyone from the public who came in to voice their opinions. I don't speak for the group, but I think we all appreciate you guys coming in and listening to what the Ohio Cultivators had to say, and also voicing what your concerns were as far as the community goes. I like to say that congratulations to the third grade Pee Wee Carlisle team. They made the playoffs. They play this coming weekend, either in Clinton Massey or I believe Bellbrook. So we wish them luck. And then I know Franklin also had, but I know Brad's touched on it a lot of times. We've had a lot of vandalism here locally in the community, both Carlisle and Franklin. So just want to urge the public to, have your outside lights on, keep your doors locked and things like that, and just kind of watch your area and make sure we stay safe, and keep your guys' property safe. And that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Jewett.
I would also like to thank Ohio Cultivators for showing up this evening, as well as you, the residents. We are here because of you, and without you all's opinion, we cannot make an educated decision. So I thank you all for coming this evening. The one other thing I want to bring to notice is remind everyone that October 31st will be Beggars Night. That is from 6 to 8, and that is in conjunction with Franklin Township as well, I believe. So let everyone know about that. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Licklider.
Thanks to Ohio Cultivators. Thanks for everybody else to come out. We're glad that you did. We don't often have many people in our audience. Usually Chet Miles is the only person that comes. And we appreciate your attendance and appreciate your comments. And I'd also like to say about, those of you that hopefully some of you made it to the open house for the fire department last night. Had a good open house. By the time I left, I was there about 5:30 and left about maybe 6:45. I saw 2 people show up. So I'm hoping that after I left, maybe I was the cause, but after I left, hopefully a lot of others showed up and they were able to ask questions about the fire department and see all the work that they've done and the changes that they've made. So I'd like to appreciate or say thanks to the fire department for what they've done. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Mr. McIntosh.
Echo those sentiments. Thank you to everyone who came, both sides. This is definitely the most amount of people that I've seen here in 4 years, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the conversation both ways. We might not always agree, but I appreciate hearing your input, our input, and how each other, the background of how each other come to their decisions. Like Mr. Bignell said, please lock your doors, your car doors. Don't be an easy target. Franklin had a rash, Carlisle had a rash of vandalisms. And we've had our break-ins that seem to continue. The break-in to steal change and other things out of your car. Lock up your valuables, lock your doors. Don't be an easy target. Just be smart, lock your doors, keep your lights on. And I know I said it last week, but traveling like I do around the country after natural disasters and seeing the impact of them, I would like to encourage everyone to continue to send their thoughts and prayers to Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and all the places that are hit hard. You see it on the news, and then the news leaves after a while, and as people continue to feel those effects. I was there 42 days, and the people are still with nothing. So just continue to support those efforts that help those people, and continue to keep them in your thoughts and prayers. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. McEldowney.
Again, as has been said, thank you to Ohio Craft Cultivators. Thank you to the public for the input. It's great having the community here to provide us with their thoughts on our issues. Also, like Mr. Licklider said, thank you to the fire department for hosting the open house. And the renovations look great. I didn't have the opportunity to see the firehouse prior to the renovations, but Miss Duffy showed me the kitchen. That's reminiscent of the old areas that were upgraded. And based on the kitchen, they've come a long ways, and I'm sure that it was definitely time for an upgrade, and all the work they did in-house themselves from what we understand. And so I commend our volunteer fire department for taking that on and doing a great job. And that is all.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Tankersley.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody that came out both sides. And to the residents of Carlisle that are here, thank you. We really do appreciate you coming out and talking to us. That's things that we need. Thank you very much. That's all.
Okay, thank you. We'll close council report, move on to mayor's report. Again, I'd like to echo the same things. Very rarely do we ever have anyone from the community show up here to a council meeting. And we certainly do appreciate all of you being here and hearing your comments. And they will be taken. That being said, I would also like to thank the fire department for all their work and their open house last night. I stopped by and seen the renovation going on down there while it was going on. And then after seeing it last night, it's amazing what those young men do. They're all volunteers. They don't get paid for anything. And they take a lot of pride in the fire station down there. And it's basically at no cost to the taxpayers per se. Of course, there is a levy that provides some of that money for them, but if we had to pay for that work out of pocket, it would cost us a lot of money. So kudos to all of our volunteers. One other thing I'd like to bring up is on the 31st, that is a council meeting night. And I know some of our council members have small children. If you wanted to take those around, do you want to consider changing our meeting night on the 31st, Tuesday, to maybe Monday?
Our next meeting is the 24th.
The 24th? Okay, then I'm mistaken.
31st is a Tuesday, but not a council Tuesday.
Okay.
It's the fifth
Well,
Tuesday.
well, that's good. Then we don't have to worry about changing our meeting. That's all I have this evening on the mayor's report. We'll move on to manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. Wanted to invite the community out to support the Carlisle High School girls soccer team. They will be hosting a home match in their first round of districts. It looks like it's going to be a very competitive game. Looking at the bracket, if they win round one, we will also host a home game for round two. That team looks to be possibly beatable by us, which means that, you know, if we can get past round one, we can actually make it to the sectionals, which would be the first time, I think maybe ever for the high school team, if not for a very long time. So just get some community support out there for the girls. And want to just update council on a couple issues related to the fire department. The fire department did apply for a grant through Firehouse Subs for thermal imaging cameras. They did receive a thank you regret letter. The response for overwhelmed the amount of funding they had this round. Chief Holbrook has indicated that the next round for the same grant opens up, he believes, December. So we're going to resubmit in December and try again for that grant. I wanted to let you know about that. And then just to update, last meeting, council passed a resolution allowing us to apply for, the acronym is FEEEG funds, basically fire grant through the BWC to help with exposure. At that time, we believed that it was a 100% matching grant. I want to update council to say that we've been informed that it is a 5-to-1 matching grant, which means we will, if we are awarded, we would receive up to $15,000 to install a diesel exhaust system in the firehouse, but we would have to come up with $3,000 of that matching funds. This is something that Chief Holbrook has included in his budgetary request for next year. I just wanted to clarify, last meeting we said it was 100%. It's not, it's more like 80%. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the manager's report. We have no committee reports, no old or new business this evening. Under first readings of ordinance and resolutions, we have ordinance 1717, 2018 budget appropriation, which is on for a first reading.
An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the municipality of Carlisle during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018.
This budget being presented to you tonight does come out of last week's work session that we had with, I believe, 4 of the members of council were able to attend. The others were not due to scheduling conflicts. Out of that presentation, we went over the budget fund by fund, the budgetary request. It is a good budget. I think it's a very solid looking budget. Out of that work session, it was recommended by the members in attendance to put it on tonight for a first reading. We do have time to adopt this without any emergency legislation. So if we just need to make sure the first reading would happen, if not tonight, although it's on, it would need to happen at least by next Tuesday or the next meeting by Tuesday in order to avoid any emergency language.
Can we have a finance committee meeting prior to next meeting?
Yeah.
Good.
You want to go ahead and set up a time
Yeah, I would like
now?
for the committee to meet at least once before voting on
I know my finance director has conflicts due to his school schedule on Mondays and Thursdays, so if we could avoid those nights.
Well, can we just have it prior to the 24th meeting?
Oh, do you want to have it on that Tuesday night prior to it? Okay, so our meeting's normally at 6.
30 minutes prior to?
Yeah.
5:30.
Okay, so 5:30? Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So ordinance 1717 will be on for a second reading at our 24th meeting. Ordinance 1817, 2018 employee pay plan on for a first reading.
An ordinance to adopt the 2018 employee pay schedule.
This is on also for first reading. Our pay plans usually go concurrent with our reading cycle for the actual budget. It has been 2 years now since our pay plan has been changed. Last year, we did not change our pay plan with the budget. We just adopted the budget without changing the pay plan. So this would adjust the starting and ending salaries of ranges by 5%.
Okay. Any other discussion? That will be on for a second reading on the 24th. Under second and third readings and ordinances and resolutions, ordinance 1417, $250,000 bond anticipation note, 15th renewal. That is on for a second reading.
An ordinance providing for the issuance of $250,000 various purpose bond anticipation notes, 15th renewal 2017 by the municipality of Carlisle, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds.
Again, this is a annual buy down of the debts that we still have remaining on the Carlisle Business Park. This debt is for the infrastructure that was put into place, the road, water, sewer, lights involved in it. It does reflect a $50,000 pay down from our current debt, so the remaining principal amount will be $250,000.
Any discussion? That will be on for a third and final reading on the 24th. Ordinance 1217, establishing the salary of the mayor and council, on for a third and final reading.
An ordinance establishing the salary of the mayor and council members of the municipality of Carlisle, Ohio.
This has been on the agenda cycle for a while. Council has opted to postpone it. They wanted to have the meeting at the work session, but just to remind everyone what this is every 5 years, the Carlisle Charter provides that the Carlisle Charter be reviewed by a group of citizen members of the community. The group met earlier this year. I believe they began meeting in April, soon after I became manager. One of the must-look-at requirements by our charter is the compensation of our council members. The group did look at that provision, and after several meetings and review, they did make a recommendation that the council member salary would increase by $30 a month, and the mayor's salary would increase by $60 a month. By the rules of the charter, the increase would not go into effect until the election that would be held in 2019. So this would not be an increase to council salary until the beginning of 2020 due to the mandatory requirements of the charter on how long you have to wait to enact this. And no members of the existing council would be eligible for that. It would be at your next election. The council members that are voted in then would be subject to. But because of timing, it does not go into effect with this election.
Any discussion? Motion to adopt? No motion? At this point?
I believe no motion. I believe with three, it's just, it's failed.
It's failed.
So then the council salaries will remain as they currently are.
Okay. That's all we have on our agenda this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
One point I would like to raise, another work session. Can we schedule another work session to take care of some of the items that we discussed and not everybody was here, so.
Absolutely. Do you want to set that now, or do you want to look at your schedules and get with Jenny to have it? I don't know what everyone's schedule
At
is.
this point, I would say set up for after next meeting. Have a work session after the meeting on the 24th.
24th.
That's fine.
Does that work for everybody's schedule?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have a finance committee meeting at 5:30 on the 24th.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a work session following the regular meeting on the 24th.
Okay. We need to make sure that Ron, or Don,
Don, yes.
is aware. Okay.
And just so we're clear, I'm understanding the work session would go over the store locks as well as under-speed vehicles and the council's meeting schedule.
Yeah, start date. Okay.
So if council has any other issues to add to the work session, we could just let Jenny know and we'll post that.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roll call.
Mr. Leclerc?
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Bignall?
Yes.
Mr. McEldowney?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.
We are
Thank
adjourned.
you.